Hello. So here I will solve some problems from 9.1, uh, the sum and difference formulas or the addition formulas. So we have problem number 2, sine of pi over 6 times cosine pi over 3 plus cosine pi over 6 times sine pi over 3. So what we have is this looks very similar in structure to sine of alpha plus beta, because sine of alpha plus beta is sine of the first angle times cosine of the second angle, and then plus cosine of the first angle times sine of the second angle. So this is the same thing as sine of pi over 6 plus pi over 3. When you're adding fractions, you need the same denominator. One pi over 6 plus 2 pi over 6 is 3 pi over 6, simplifies to a pi over 2. Sine of pi over 2 is 1. So there is another way to write the number 1. Okay, this one here looks very similar, except that here we're subtracting. So you have sine of the first, cosine of the second, minus cosine of the first times sine of the second. This is sine alpha minus beta, okay, which is and another way to write the number 1. Number 6, here we have cosine of the first times cosine of the second, and then plus sine of the first times sine of the second. This, for the cosine, we have alternating algebraic symbols. This is cosine alpha minus beta. So that's going to be cosine of 2u minus 3u. But cosine is an even function, and so this is the same thing as cosine of u. You can use parentheses if you like. Okay. Cosine first, cosine second, minus sine first, sine second. So this is cosine alpha plus beta, the form. Since I'm adding two fractions, I went ahead and made the denominator the same. 2 pi over 10 is the same thing as pi over 5. These are equivalent fractions. That's 5 pi over 10, which is pi over 2. Cosine of pi over 2 is 0. So here we have cosine of the first angle, cosine of the second, minus sine of the first times sine of the second. Since we are subtracting, we're going to be adding, because for the cosine it's the opposite algebraic sign. And for the cosine, you have cosines in the front and sines in the following. Okay, so this is going to be, so there's the first angle and the second angle. Simplifies the cosine of alpha. So here we have the sum of cosines. So cosine of alpha plus beta. Remember, we alternate the algebraic signs for cosine. And it's cosine cosine minus sine sine. So we have cosine of the first angle times cosine of the second angle, and the minus all of sine of the first angle, sine of the second angle. Well, cosine of 3 pi over 2 is 0. 0 times anything is 0. Sine of 3 pi over 2 is negative 1. So what we're going to have here is that negative in front times a -1 times sine of theta. Negative times a negative is a positive, so this is simply sine of theta. Here we have sine of a difference of angles. So this is of the form sine alpha cosine beta. And then for sine, we have the same algebraic sign, minus cosine alpha sine beta. Okay, so this is sine theta times cosine beta, sine theta times cosine pi, minus, we have cosine theta times sine of pi. Okay, cosine of pi is -1, so this is -1 times sine theta, and then minus sine of pi is 0. 0 times anything is 0. So we have -1 times sine theta, which is equal to negative sine theta. Okay. For 22, we have sine of a sum, which is going to be this expansion, and then minus sine of a difference. And sine of a difference is okay. We will be subtracting all of this. Don't forget to distribute your negative. So we have sine of the first angle times cosine of the second angle plus cosine of the first angle sine of the second angle, and then we're going to subtract all of this. So we have sine of the first angle, we have cosine of the second angle, minus cosine of the first angle, sine of the second angle. So all of this part here is sine of t plus pi over 6. And then minus, this is all of the second one, sine of t minus pi over 6. Pi over 6 is a familiar angle. That's our 30, 60, 90 triangle. This is not drawn to scale, but this should emphasize this 30-degree angle here. And so when I have this configuration, I have this. And 30 degrees is pi over 6. So we have sine t times cosine pi over 6. But cosine pi over 6 is radical 3 over 2. And then we will be adding cosine t times sine of pi over 6. Well, sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. And then we're subtracting all of this. Sine of t, we'll leave that alone. Cosine pi over 6, radical 3 over 2. And now we are subtracting cosine t. Sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. Okay, so this gives us we have the same denominator of 2, and then we're subtracting all of this next part. It's understood we're subtracting an entire fraction, but just to emphasize that we are subtracting the entire fraction, I'm going to include parentheses around here. Just because it is a fraction, we have negatives. Be careful. Same denominator, we can combine the numerators. And then here, when I distribute the negative, turns that into a positive. Okay, radical 3 sine t minus radical 3 sine t is 0. These are additive inverses. I have 1 cosine t plus 1 cosine t, that is 2 cosine t divided by 2 is simply cosine of t. All right. $24. So we have cosine alpha, cosine of beta, and then this is plus, sorry, that's the first angle, which is technically theta, not alpha. So cosine of the first angle, theta, cosine of the second angle, pi over 4, plus sine of the first angle, which is theta, times sine of the second angle, which is pi over 4. And then here we will be adding all of this. So we have cosine of the first angle, cosine of the second angle, and then we will be subtracting sine of the first angle, sine of the second angle. Pi over 4 should be a familiar angle at this point, but let's draw a little diagram just to refresh our memories. So 45, 45, 90 triangle, we will have sides of radical 2 over 2, radical 2 over 2, hypotenuse of 1, and 45 degrees is the same thing as pi over 4. Okay, so we have cosine of pi over 4 times cosine theta So this is cosine of pi over 4 times cosine theta, and then plus sine of pi over 4 is radical 2 over 2. And then we're adding to this Okay, so what we have is cosine theta times cosine pi over 4, which is radical 2 over 2, and then plus sine theta times sine of pi over 4, which is radical 2 over 2, and then plus cosine theta times radical 2 over 2, and then minus sine theta times radical 2 over 2. Then we just need to clean this up. We have 2's in all of the denominators, so let's make this into Okay, and then we have radical 2 sine theta minus radical 2 sine theta is 0. We have radical 2 cosine theta plus radical 2 cosine theta divided by 2. This is equal to because we don't exactly know what this value is, but we have 2 of them. So here we have just the numerator. We have 2 of that value. These 2 simplify, and we have radical 2 cosine theta. Okay, thank you very much. Please go to tutoring.